I want to tell you a story about a paradise lost right in the middle of the Nevada desert. We're going to see how this quiet little refuge got completely overrun by some really chaotic growth. And we're going to see it all through the eyes of one man, Kika Wile, who's been watching it unfold for over 50 years. His journey started with a single, unbelievable, life-changing encounter. It's one of those stories that sounds like it's straight out of a movie. Kika Waiala, as a young man in Houston, helps a total stranger whose car broke down. A week goes by, and suddenly he finds himself on the top floor of a skyscraper in the office of a billionaire oil tycoon who, for whatever reason, decides to take Kika under his wing. And that mentorship, that one chance meeting, would lead him to this dusty, unknown town in the middle of nowhere. You see, the advice this tycoon gave him wasn't just about some small town. It was a deep lesson in money, land, and, well, the future. To really get Kika's story, you have to understand where he's coming from. He was born in the Hawaiian Kingdom and identifies as a Hawaiian national, viewing the U.S. as essentially an occupying force. So when he came to the mainland, he saw himself as a foreigner. And armed with his mentor's insider knowledge, he started buying up land in Pahrump, piece by piece, decade after decade, all with a plan for his retirement. So what was the big prophecy? At its heart, it was a deep distrust of paper money. The tycoon predicted that the US dollar would eventually lose its backing in gold, and he told Kika, you need to invest in things you can touch, tangible assets. Specifically, land. He saw Pahrump not just as a cheap place, but as a kind of safe harbor for the economic storm he was sure was coming. So let's go back in time. What was Pahrump actually like when Kika first showed up in the 1970s? Back then, Pahrump was, well, it was barely even a town. It was an unincorporated community, really just a patchwork of farms and wide open land where life moved at a totally different speed. And that was the whole appeal. It was a blank slate. The whole economy revolved around two things, alfalfa and cotton. It was a place where retirees went to find some peace and quiet. This was not suburbia, okay? You couldn't just buy a little lot for a house. Land was sold in massive 640-acre sections. We're talking square miles at a time. It was a place completely defined by space, quiet, and a real simplicity. All right, now let's slam the fast forward button to the Pahrump of today. Because that quiet farming town Kika invested in, it has become something else entirely, something jarring and, frankly, pretty chaotic. And you don't have to take my word for it. This observation comes from a newcomer, someone who just moved from Miami. The word her own son uses for their new home? Purgatory. I mean, wow, that's a pretty bleak way to describe a place that's caught somewhere between the peaceful town it was and the mess it's becoming.
And the reasons why are, well, they're grim. A social media post she made laid out this shocking list of big city problems. Violent crime, public drug use, just this anger everywhere. A murder during a children's movie night in the park. That's a universe away from the peaceful haven Kika first discovered.
So the question is, how does a town change that drastically, that fast? The answer, unfortunately, is a pretty predictable cycle of urban flight that we're seeing play out all over the country. So here's how it works. Big cities, they become way too expensive, almost unlivable for a lot of people. So they look for an escape valve, and they find it in these small, affordable towns like Pahrump. But here's the catch. That massive, sudden rush of new people brings the exact same problems they were trying to run away from, completely overwhelming a town that was never built to handle it in the first place. And that is the absolute core of the paradox here. Kika sees these new residents, people who are just looking for a better life, and they're accidentally recreating the crowded, stressful places they just fled. They want all the city amenities, but without the city cost, and in the process, they're just destroying the very piece that made the town so special. The consequences of this are very, very real. Pahrump is still unincorporated, which means it doesn't have the government or the infrastructure to manage this crazy growth. The most critical resource you can have in the desert, water, is getting sucked dry as the aquifer drops. The small town vibe is just vanishing. And as we've seen, crime is shooting up. The paradise is literally being paved over. So Kika's long journey really gives us a crystal clear warning. And it's not just for Pahrump. It's for countless other small towns out there. Now, Kika has this really fascinating philosophy that he learned from his mentor, and it's all about what he calls true private property. He believes that paying property tax is basically like paying rent to the government. You never truly own it. He bought his land with patents and real money like gold because he was seeking a level of ownership and security that he just doesn't think exists in our modern system. And because of that self-reliant mindset, he is always looking to the next thing. Kika is already scouting affordable land in places like Mexico and Panama, places that remind him of the old Pahrump, vast, open, and just full of potential. It feels like the cycle might be about to start all over again. But there is a really tragic irony to all this. The original paradise he left, his home in Hawaii, isn't an option anymore. He talks about it being poisoned by military jet fuel leaks getting into the water and by pollution from chemical companies. So you see, his first paradise was lost a long, long time ago, which is what set him on this whole journey to begin with. At the end of the day, Kika's final message isn't about telling people to stay away. It's really a plea for people to be more mindful. It's a cautionary tale from a guy who has had a front row seat to the destructive side of unchecked growth for 50 years. And all of this brings us to one last, really thought-provoking question. Kika left a spoiled paradise in Hawaii, he built a new one for himself in Pahrump, and now he's watching that one spoiled too, all while he's planning his next escape. It really makes you wonder, in our world of constant growth and movement, are we just destined to keep searching for the next unspoiled place, only to end up ruining it all over again?